is Kelly Fletchall, and I'm back again with Cruiser. This past week we've been working on offline work, as you guys saw, and it has been going pretty well. He has settled into that type of work and feels a lot more comfortable with the flag in and around his space off a line. He has been going out with Dauntless, the horse that you saw in the previous video, and the pecking order has stayed the same. Dauntless is actually the herd leader, and they've been getting along very, very well. We are actually pulling Dauntless during the day, and Cruiser is staying out in that field by himself, so he is learning how to be in that environment and trust himself when another horse is pulled away from him. We gave him some space over the weekend and let his owner work with him and ride him, which she said he has been doing amazing. She worked him offline, and she actually said he would stop and turn towards her and actually reach his nose out to touch the flag, which we have not seen from him before, which is really good that we're starting to see some progress there. So one of the next steps that we want to do before I go to get on this horse is actually working him on a line. So this is one of the ways that you can bridge it to under saddle work. So now that he is more comfortable on his own and he trusts me being far away from him and he trusts himself alone in the round pen dealing with external stimulus, today we're going to kind of put all of that together, but then add me, which to some horses, this is a lot of pressure, just me having control over his head. One of the important things we need to remember that we do while we ride horses under saddle is we ride the horse from the hind end forward. We never ride their head, right? We are never pulling. We are always kicking up and then letting them hit the rein and come back. It's very fluid movement, so we need to keep that in mind. I can't let him get stuck on my hand. I can't just use his face, right? I have to move his feet. Now going back to the main issue at hand is Cruiser rears. He gets stuck. He doesn't want to go forward. The biggest thing that we want to do with a horse like this is move his feet. We want him going, right? Now we don't want to flood him. We don't want him to be galloping. We don't want him to be running. We don't want him so flighty off our aids that it can be dangerous or scary, right? We want it to be quiet, but the answer always needs to be to move his feet. So today, I'm going to show you what Cruiser is like on a line. This will probably be pretty raw. I'm not sure how he's going to respond to the stimulus. The first time I worked him on a line, I actually did get quite a few rears out of him, which I couldn't get when he was loose. So this to him adds a pressure that he just is not ready to handle yet. So we're going to try to teach him how to handle that, and that this pressure is okay, that this added stimulus is okay, that him being attached to me is a safe place, and I am not going to put him in a situation that he or I cannot get himself out of. That being said, here we go. I chose a time of night that I know is hard for him. We have already fed, we have turned out, there are people riding in the arena, the manure and shavings bin is right behind me, the barn is in front of me, horses are still being turned out, there are wheelbarrows going by, etc., etc. He hates external stimuli outside of the ring and completely pulls his focus off of me, as you can see as a wheelbarrow goes by. So one of the things I'm going to be trying to work on is not only getting him to move with my commands at the correct pace, right? We don't want him freaking out, but also keeping his eye on me, keeping his ear on me, and keeping me part of the equation at all times, and not forgetting that I am here and actually in charge of him. All right, before I get off on a tangent, we're gonna go give this a shot. I hope you enjoy what you see. If you guys have any questions, please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will get back to you guys as soon as I see it. Thanks, bye. Okay, so one of the first things we are going to work on today is getting him to move off my pressure with the flag in the direction of my hand, and then change directions when I swap the aid into my other hand. Now, like I said before, we want him turning towards us, not away from us when we switch directions, which this will make turning away from us almost completely impossible, right? Unless he absolutely put his head down and bored right or left, I would have control and be able to turn his head. So the idea is to get his feet moving and direct his head, just give his head an idea of where to go and not be pulling and forcing him to go that way, right? We want it to be his idea based on my body language and my minimal efforts to push him in that direction. We don't want to have to be big, but we need to remember that if he gives us the wrong answer, we have to make that wrong answer known to him, right? We cannot applaud that wrong answer, but we also can't flood him when that wrong answer happens. So we just need to kindly make it not the easy answer to choose. So we are just going to start off by asking him to change directions. So I'm actually going to open my hand out in the direction I want him to go and ask him to follow that hand with some light pressure. Now, as you see, he is not moving. I'm going to add that pressure and just a little pressure does. So I'm gonna let him walk around me. And remember, this flag is just a basic extension of our aid. We don't want to hit him with it. We don't want to be too big with it. We're only as big with it as he makes us be. We're going to go ahead and ask him to change direction. So I started out on a long rein. Did you see him slightly take advantage of that rein? He didn't want to turn at first. He was looking out and away from me, and he wanted to go out of the round pen. Now, we talked about that last time, that a horse that is facing out of the round pen and looking out of the round pen wants to leave the round pen. We want him facing me when he is sitting and not being asked to do anything. We want his eyes and his ears on me. So that being said, I'm going to help him out, and I'm just going to shorten this line and ask him to change directions again. Good. Now I want him to walk back out and not crowd my space. So when I want him to do that, I'm going to push towards his shoulder and ask him to step out. Good. Now let's change direction again. Good. So this is the right reaction, right? Now I would like if he didn't come in so close to me and if he didn't lift his head when I asked him to change directions. We want him to be calm and quiet and happy about changing directions for me. So I'm going to start asking him to not crowd me so much, okay? So I'm going to add a little pressure and ask him to step his hip over. Good. I hope you guys saw that. I hope it was in camera. I had to increase the pressure a little bit and touch him with the flag, but as you saw, it wasn't that much pressure, right? It was just enough. You actually still see him sometimes flinching at that much pressure. And one of the big things about pressure is we don't want to go into a horse and all at once go, ha! Right? Look how much that scared him. We don't want to increase the pressure. Good boy. We don't want to increase the pressure so much that they don't have an opportunity to learn from it, right? You want to start with small, little amounts of pressure, and then you can add to bigger. You see the difference in his reaction? I gave him time to look and see and respond, and then when he didn't, I did more. He feels much safer in that type of response, right? I'm going to ask him to keep moving now. So asking a horse that likes to get stuck to step towards you and change directions can be pretty difficult, right? You're putting them in a box that these horses don't normally want to be stuck in. So again, you see him move that hind end, that's great. I want him to start doing that on his own. So right here. There, that's the reaction that I want, moving that hip. So that being said, these little things on the ground, I'm not going to kill them and show you this 100 times, but you got to see something really cool there. Those little things on the ground are so important because if you can't get that hip to move on the ground, like I just did there, you're not going to get it under saddle. One of the things that this horse does is when his owner was riding him in that lesson, I was like, turn him, make him move his feet, pull his nose to your hip and don't let it go, and then add that leg and ask him to spin in a circle. If you can get a horse's feet moving, they cannot rear, they cannot buck, they're going forward, they can't do any of that. But this horse wasn't knowledgeable enough. He was so stuck, he didn't know what that stimulus meant. So to him, that stimulus just made him go up more. He felt trapped. He did not understand that when I ask your head to go this way and I add some leg, that is you bending the rib cage and stepping over. You need to move your hind end and give into that pressure. In high anxiety situations where there's a lot going on or this horse is in a new environment, he doesn't think of those things. He doesn't remember those things. So when you pull your rein and you add leg and then you keep adding pressure on that leg or that hand, he just literally loses it and goes up. He has no idea, right? I mean, have you ever been in, like, really high anxiety about a test or anything of the matter, and then someone is just yelling at you to study harder or like do better or whatever it may be? They're just yelling at you to do it. And you're like, oh my God, I can't handle this. And you do worse because of it, right? You're going to freak out. You're not going to remember anything if you're just being yelled at. That is not the way we learn. And so that's how he feels in that moment. He feels like we are overstimulating him. He is at the peak of anxiety and he is past the point of learning. He is past the point of making good decisions for himself, right? And he doesn't trust us, or he isn't able to respond to our stimuli well enough to get out of those states of emotion under saddle. So that is what we're doing here. Now, it's not going to happen all at once overnight. So we have a lot of better offline work, right? He can still be reactive to the flag though if I go to intense pressure instead of just starting small, right? But look at this. So the first day, he's licking and chewing. The first day I had this horse in this round pen, I freaking picked this thing up and a homie was running everywhere. So this is just saying that like a couple days and you just let it be relaxed, and small wins and little things like this are just gonna go away, right? So next week, I'm not gonna have to be worried about the flag. I'm not gonna be worried about moving his hip over. I'm gonna be worried about getting him to stand at the mounting block under saddle, right? So I think I said this in the last video, but if you get 1% every day, you have 100% in 100 days. And let me tell you, like a lot of these people are calling me to send me horses for 30, 60, 90 days of training, right? They're like, we've had 3 years and we've tried this, and this, and we've hired this cowboy and done this, and we've given them 30 days to do it. Well, like that kind of pressure doesn't work, okay? You want, if you have the ability, which I know some people don't have the ability, if you have the ability to send your horse to a trainer that can take the time it takes, you might be surprised if they don't have the pressure put on them and your horse doesn't have that pressure put on them. It could take 30 days or it could take 300 days. But picking up your horse after 60 or 90 days because it isn't the horse that you think it should be yet and moving it to another trainer unless you have valid reasons just isn't going to do it for your horse, right? So a lot of these horses, it's the long game. This horse, they've tried a lot of things with it and then have been like, well, that's not working, so let's move on to the next thing. Not the owner's fault, right? She's had a lot of people telling her what to do and had a lot of help from friends, and it's nobody's fault, but that horse did not respond to that stimuli well, and we need to try something new. Like I said, something to think about. Every horse learns differently, but honestly, if I get 1%, like I got that hip to move great. It took a couple times. I got that hip to move great. If that's all he learned today, I am 100% happy with that. Like we can go home and call it a day. And again, another thing is if I get that hip to move great 20 times today and then he walks in the round pen and he won't move it for me right away tomorrow, I can't take that as a loss, right? He might need me to show him again once or twice how to move that hip and move it in a kind way before I immediately am like, hey, we learned this yesterday. You need to get this down so we can move on to the next thing, right? You need to give them a moment. You need to treat these horses like a toddler. I have a 2-year-old son. I'm like the most impatient person that I know. You can ask anybody who knows me. I talk a million miles per hour. I don't have patience for anything. If I'm in the barn and I'm working and you stop and talk to me, you better learn how to walk and talk with me, right? Or we're not having a conversation. The one thing I have learned with having a 2-year-old and learned with horses is patience. You know, when I'm on my own, I can be impatient. I can run around. I can do a million tasks at once. But when I'm with my son or I'm with Cruiser, you have to slow it down, and little wins are huge. Little wins are huge, right? I'm gonna go see if you'll move that hip for me just a little bit quieter this time and not encroach on my space. My space is really important. I have a bubble, right? This horse loves to get in the bubble, but then when you get upset about him being in your bubble, he gets upset and gets stuck or rears, right? So let's go out and see if we can do this again. I'm going to keep this line shorter than I did originally because as you saw with that long line, he still is getting a little bit distracted. I want to kind of help him out and help guide him and show him that paying attention to me is the way we want to do this, right? I'm just going to ask him to walk on, get us in the camera. And again, like my boundary, right? So I'm going to have, this is my boundary. Look at that moving of the hip. That's great, right? So again, he's not scared of the flag when I'm using it appropriately. The goal is to have him never be scared of this flag, and that is what we're working on. The flag is just an extension of the aid. Cruiser is not afraid of my leg, nor is he afraid of my hand. He should not be afraid of this. So I'm going to guide him right hand and ask him to step over. I don't want him to get stuck. I want him to keep moving. And now he's in my space. Good. One difference I want you guys to notice, and I just want to praise it for a second, is no matter what, when he doesn't know what to do now, instead of turning away and running, he is turning towards me, right? Something to notice. Even though he's turning towards me and stopping when I was still asking him to go forward, it's something to know. I'm going to ask him to go forward again, open my hand, send some pressure. Now to the right, he seems to like to get in my space, so I'm just going to do a couple laps towards the shoulder and ask him to step over. He likes to fall in close to the barn. If he's falling in hand in the round pen, he is Good boy. Inevitably gonna fall in under saddle in the riding arena. Going to think about, ask him to step over. I didn't like how much his front end got stuck there. I'd like to see his front end still moving when we change direction. I would like him to step over, so that is the way that I want him to turn. I don't know if you saw that, but he went and turned, he stepped out instead of doing one of these. We want him to keep moving. We do not want any feet grounded, okay? Now, if he was to go to rear, and I could get those feet grounded like I just did there, that is something that I will go to do, but we are not there yet. That is not a button I have yet. So right now we're just working on moving the feet. Open my hand, ask him to step forward, tell him, hey, I need my space. Keep my leading hand out, swap hands. There's that step over I wanted, and ask him to give me my space. Good. I want you guys to notice now I can kind of cluck at him lightly. I can push the flag to him and he is not just running off. I think that's super important to mention. And step over. Good. Again, ask him for some space. I don't know if you guys will notice, he has a much quieter face and eye today. His ear is towards me. He's pretty relaxed. Even his tail head is more relaxed than normal. There's that step over. And stay out of my space. Stay out of my space. Good. And I'm gonna ask him to stop and stand, just light hand. And there's Cruiser doing some learnings, right? Pretty cool. This horse is actually really fun to work with. He's learning way faster than I thought. I think as long as we kind of stay down the path with him, we will have a better horse before we even know a happier horse. Actually not a better horse, because he is amazing. Everyone who has seen him absolutely loves him. They think he's beautiful, well put together, all the things that you want, which I would agree. He's a great personality. We love him. And so we want to get it to where he can love himself and feel comfortable in his own body. Stay tuned for the next video. I am going to take him off this line and just do a quick little video of him offline to show you guys what he has in fact learned. I'm gonna ask this horse to walk on. And then I'm just gonna casually ask him to stop and turn to me. And that is difference. There's even that 1% of difference I talked about, guys. This horse is much happier because he's understanding of his job, and he's starting to understand what pressure means, and that my pressure is not a threat to him, and that when I put that pressure on him, it is for a good reason. And when he responds, the pressure leaves. Good boy. You're just a good boy, Cruiser. What do you think? What do you think? Yeah.